I got this sign on clearance at Dollar General at their end of the summer sale, and this heart came from Dollar Tree. These little wooden letters, XOXO, came from a pack from Hobby Lobby, as did the scrapbook paper. Now, I know it's pretty cute as it is, but I really have a different project in mind, and I only needed the back piece, so I'm going to work to pop off these little animals, and I'm going to try to go slow so that I can save them for another project because they would be pretty cute. Once I get those off, it did tear a few pieces in this burlap, but I'm just going to trim that up, and I'm going to end up covering it up anyways, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that on there. I like the look of it. I'm going to use this plaster color chalk paint by Waverly to give this wooden heart a good coat, front, back, and all the sides. Once that's dry, I'm going to take this antique wax by Waverly and use a wet wipe to apply it to the edges and just kind of the front edges of that heart to just dress it a little, make it look a little aged so that it'll match the rest of my project. Then I'm going to use my heart to trace and cut out a piece of paper to apply to the top. Once I got it cut down to size, I applied some Mod Podge to the top of that heart and then pressed my paper on. And it's okay if the edges don't match up perfectly because I'm going to go around with my mini sander and just kind of get the extra off the edges as well as distress and blend in those edges. Then I'm going to take my wet wipe and apply some more of that antiquing wax around the edges of my paper and all around the little heart, blending it in. And here's how it looks so far. Once that's dry, I'm going to add a layer of Mod Podge on top to seal it in. Now I'm going to work on my board. I have a roll of twine here. I'm going to go ahead and staple a piece to the back there, and then I'm going to just start wrapping it around the end of my board, covering up that little snag that I made earlier, and I'm going to just wrap it around really as many times as you like, and then I'm going to cut it and staple it on the back side. And then I'm going to do the same thing at the top piece, and I'm not going to worry so much about that middle part because we're going to be covering that up. And then I'm also going to add some hot glue to those little parts that I stapled on. Now I'm going to take some of this E6000 and use it right in the center of that heart to give it a good strong bonding agent, and then use my hot glue to put some on the edges for kind of a quick set, and I'm going to glue it right in the middle there, kind of crooked just a little. Now I'm going to work on my bow, and this is the material I'm using. It's kind of a peachy swirl, a red and white stripe, a pink and white, or pink and kind of polka dot, and then a burgundy check and drop cloth that I coffee stained, and then I also have some strips of burlap and lace ribbon. I also have some cheesecloth here, and I'm going to cut all my pieces in 6-inch strips. I'm going to place some folded over twine in the bottom of my Bodabra, and then I'm going to let it hold my pieces. So I'm going to just start by layering in some different strips, kind of deciding what order I want to put them in here. I'm going to just, once I figure out my pattern, then I'm just going to keep repeating that about 4 times until I have the fullness that I want. And then I decided just to move that strip out. And, you know, sometimes it's just trial and error, but that's what I love about the Bodabra, because you can just pull stacks up, pull pieces out, and you don't have to mess up everything that you've already done. So what I do end up doing in here is just alternating the colors of fabric with neutral colored pieces. So I kind of put a pinkish piece, a neutral, a red piece, a neutral, and continued on in that manner until I used all my pieces. And if you want a flatter bow, you can just do less layers here. If you need it to be smaller, you can cut your strip smaller, maybe only about 4 inches. Now I'm going to pull that twine up, and I'm going to put the ends through the loop that I made, and then I'm going to hold my material down while I cinch that up, and it's going to make a really nice just little tie for me there. And once I pull it off, I'm going to split those ends, flip it over to the back, and tie in a couple of knots. Now that it's nice and secure, I can shake it out, fluff it up, spread it all around, and I'm also going to start trimming the edges to make sure that they are all the same length and also that it is the size that I need it to be. You can also fray those edges a little bit more if you want more fray. Now I'm just going to staple some of those underneath pieces to my board so that it's a little more secure. I'm going to just dig down to the bottom of that bow and staple on each side and at the top. Now I'm going to use some of this brown truffle paint to paint over the little wooden XO letters that I showed you earlier, and I want to give it just a good rusting effect. I'm going to take some of this cinnamon paint and use a sponge to sponge it over the top of that in some different places so that it looks like rust. I'm going to give that a quick dry with my heat tool, and then I'm going to use a stiff brush to apply some of this Mod Podge where I put that cinnamon color paint, because that is where I'm going to apply my cinnamon powder to make the rust look. I'm just going to dust that on where I put that Mod Podge and shake the extra off. And then I'm going to use my brush again to apply Mod Podge to the top of that to just make sure that it stays attached to the little letters and give it just that kind of rusty look. And once it's dry, it looks pretty neat. Now I'm going to use some hot glue to attach it to the bottom of the board. And then to finish off my bow, I'm going to put a little piece of cheesecloth in the middle, and on top of that, I'm going to put a natural colored button. Then I'm going to take a scrap piece of burlap and lace and glue them to the corner of my heart there so it looks a little bit tattered. Then for a finishing touch, I'm going to take this distress ink and use it to accent and highlight some of the areas of my project. I'm going to put a little bit on the buttons, on some of the bow pieces. I'm going to go around the edges of the little heart some more. I'm putting it on that jute string, and then taking just the pad itself and going around the edges of that board and the corners and in between in the little cracks, just kind of grunging it up a little. And here's how it turned out. I just really love how the pinks and reds and neutrals all look together, yet it's still very rustic. Thanks so much for watching my video today, and I hope it inspired you to get a little crafty. Have a blessed day.